Back in 1906, a wealthy black landowner by the name of O.W. Gurley purchased 40 acres of land in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and named it Greenwood. Greenwood's population was made up mainly of formerly enslaved black people who wished to escape the racial terror that they experienced elsewhere in search of a better life following the Civil War. Gurley opened a black boarding house and grocery stores, and he sold land to other black people, allowing them to secure their own homes and open their own businesses. Word spread about the opportunities, and black Oklahomans flocked to Greenwood. The Greenwood district operated independently, had its own school system, post office, bank, library, hospital, public transit, tons of businesses, restaurants, hotels, clothing stores, movie theaters, and barbershops. It was affectionately nicknamed Black Wall Street. In no time, Tulsa's Greenwood district became one of the most affluent African-American communities in the United States in the early 20th century, a community built by black people for black people. But what took years to build burned to the ground in one day. Word spread about black prosperity, particularly to white residents who resented it and saw the black community as inferior. There was a resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan. Lynchings proliferated across the country, and black voting rights were under attack in Oklahoma. On May 30th, 1921, 102 years ago last week, 19-year-old Dick Rowland, a black shoe shiner, was accused of sexually assaulting a white woman in an elevator. The accounts of what really happened vary, but when Rowland was arrested, an angry mob of white men marched to the courthouse demanding that he be handed over to them for a lynching. Chaos broke out over the next few days. The angry armed white mob multiplied and outnumbered a group of black men who had gathered to try to guard Dick Rowland. As dawn broke on June 1st, 1921, thousands of white citizens descended on the Greenwood district. Businesses were looted. An area of 35 city blocks burned to the ground. Historians estimate that about 300 black Greenwood residents were killed. It is one of the worst incidents of racial violence in American history, and until recently, one of the least known. The history of the Tulsa Race Massacre was buried along with the unmarked graves of some of the victims. The cover-up began all the way back in 1921, when the Tulsa Tribune removed its inflammatory front-page story of Dick Rowland's arrest from its archive. Historians later found out that police and state militia archives were also missing. For decades, the Tulsa Massacre was overlooked in classrooms, even in Oklahoma. The state has included the Tulsa Race Massacre in its academic standards since 2002, but the standards didn't say what teachers should teach and how they should teach it, so little, if any, time was ever spent on the topic. It wasn't until 2019 that Oklahoma's education department embedded what was to be covered and how in the state's academic standards. 300 black people murdered by a white mob, a thriving black community raised by white rioters, and it took nearly 100 years for that story to be adequately told in classrooms. But if you think that piece of history is now safely preserved in Oklahoma's schools and libraries, think again. 2 years ago, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill that bans the teaching of critical race theory in schools. Now, every time we bring up CRT, I've got to remind you, it's an academic theory that says racism is ingrained in the history of the United States. It's taught in college, not in elementary schools. It's a legal theory. But it's become the catch-all for the right to try to suppress conversations about racism in America everywhere, including in schools. The Oklahoma bill bans teachers from promoting the idea that, quote, an individual by virtue of his or her race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, end quote. Critics of the law and many educators say it deters teachers from discussing Oklahoma's fraught racial past. At the time the bill was signed in 2021, right around the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina addressed the House floor saying, quote, as a former history teacher, I often quote George Santayana, who said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. The Tulsa Race Massacre is a prime example of inflaming issues and ignoring history. They both significantly lead to the inability and failure to learn the lessons that history can teach us.